100 yards ahead of us, on the right, big white building, Dugdale Towers, formerly St Barnabas Church Hall, where the Choir member formed many a skiffle composition, actually won quite a few. And also during the 1960s, Freddie Mercury of Queen used to live above there, of Liverpool Art College. This road on the right, Dugdale Road, we're not going to drive down there, very far end. Dugdale Primary School attended by both John Lennon and George Harrison, although they never actually met at school. A couple of years separation from school, John was in the same class as George's elder brother. Right, so as we get to the end of Penny Lane, you may have noticed all the places mentioned in the song are not actually on Penny Lane. In this little area ahead of us called Smithdown Place, but the song Smithdown Place in my heart never had the same ring to it. They cheated and extended Penny Lane by 50 yards. Sgt Pepper's Bistro, middle of the roundabout, formerly a bus and tram waiting shelter where pretty nurses sold poppies from the train. That is the reason the lads rose for this area. Basically, this is where they had to meet to get the bus. John was at the Art College, Paul and George at Liverpool Institute, both in the city centre. Because they lived in the south of the city, off to our right, they did travel from home on a bus to Smithdown Place. They changed buses here and then travelled from here to the city. So the song is written about what was going on while waiting for a bus to school. As we carry on across, the first corner to the left, Penny Lane Surgery, that was the bank on the corner. But the banker never wore a mac in the pouring rain. Very strange. And then on the left again, as the road starts to bend, Tony Slavin was formerly Bioletti's, the barber shop. So I say, the song is just written about what was going on while waiting for a bus to school. Now George's father was also a bus driver. He's just coming up on the left hand side, just here where the bar is and the supermarkets are behind it. That's where the bus depot was that George's father was based. Also come up on the right. This next little side street's far too narrow for us to drive into, but this one here is Newcastle Road. Number 9, Newcastle Road was John Lennon's first home. When he was born, 9th of October 1940, he was immediately taken to number 9, Newcastle Road, which was his grandparents' house. He spent the first 4 years of his life on until being taken to live with his Aunt Mimi down at Walton, a house called Mendips on Menlove Avenue. That's the house we'll stop outside a bit later. Give you a chance to get your photos, because it is the house that's more synonymous with the upbringing of John Lennon. Now we've got a 2-minute drive to an area called Wavertree. We're going to make our next stop, jump off the bus, at the birthplace of George Harrison. Harrison on the 24th of February 1943, making him the youngest of the Beatles, but also the youngest of 4 children. So as you can imagine, quite a tight fit. 6 of them living in their house, 2 rooms upstairs, 2 rooms downstairs, toilet out in the backyard. The rent on their house was 10 shillings a week, 50 pence a week, and they lived there for just under 7 years until they moved into a house in Speke, which actually been waiting 18 years for on the council waiting list. When they eventually moved to Speke, they're only a couple of roads away from where the McCartney family were living, although it wasn't for a few years later. The Paul and George met for the first time. They actually met on the bus going to Penny Lane. Paul was on the bus, George got after him carrying a guitar. They got talking about music and George showed Paul how well he could play. Paul was amazed the young man could play so well. Went straight back to John Lennon and said, "Do you want to get this guy in our band? He's great." John said, "How old is he?" Paul said, "He's 14. John said, "No chance. If a little brother in a band with you, it's just not cool." So they wouldn't let George in the band. George followed them around for a few months till one day he decided to play the guitar in front of John. When John heard him play, he instantly changed his mind. Said to Paul, "Get him in the band. We need some real musicians." John wanted to surround himself with real musicians to hide the fact that he was still learning to play the guitar. His mum was still giving him lessons on a banjo. Now, notice that George's birthday was the 24th of February 1943. You read any of the books written about the Beatles, written about George up until 10 years ago. They'll all state that his birthday was the 25th of February. They were all wrong. Even George's birth certificate said he was born the 25th. Again, that was wrong. George found out 10 years before he died he'd been celebrating the wrong birthday for the whole of his life. He found out he was born at home at 20 to midnight on the 24th. But by the time the midwife had done all the paperwork, she checked their watch. It was 10 past midnight. So she wrote down the 25th. And so it was only a few years before he died, he found out he was actually born on the 24th. One of the more exclusive areas of Liverpool. It's quite a wealthy community. We're not actually allowed to stop on this road. We're also just slowing right down. So you see this double fronted White House to the left, 197 Queen's Drive, the former home of the Epstein family. That is where Brian and John would have sat in the morning room discussing the future of the Beatles. It's also where they had a cocktail party in the morning of Paul McCartney's 21st birthday, before going off to Auntie Gin's house in Huyton, where John Lennon then decided to beat up the Cavern DJ Bob Wooler for saying that he was gay. John hit him with a garden spade. When Brian left school, he also left school with no qualifications. He'd never really fitted in at school through his own personal differences. When he left school, he didn't want to join the family business. The family owned furniture shops in the north of England. Brian had no interest in following the family business. He eventually went off to London and joined RADA, the Royal Academy for Dramatic Arts. After a couple of months down there, he realised it wasn't for him. Came back to Liverpool and did start work for the family. According to his father, he was a born salesman. The family then bought a music store in Liverpool called NEMS, North End Music Stores. And because Brian was such a great salesman, they decided to run a larger music store in Liverpool city centre and make Brian the manager. That was on Whitechapel, just around the corner from the Cavern. Brian prided himself on the fact that he had the largest music collection in the north of England. He also put a sign in the window saying if we haven't got it, we'll get it for you within 3 days. Guaranteed. In October 1961, people started asking for a song called My Bonnie. Brian had never heard of it, but he managed to track it down to a small record label out in Hamburg, and he ordered the minimum amount of copies he could get. He ordered 25 copies, sold out instantly. Again, he ordered another 25 copies, and again, it sold out. He started asking around what all the fuss was about. It was explained to him, although the record, My Bonnie, was by Tony Sheridan and the Beat Brothers, the backing band were actually called the Beatles. They played around the corner of the Cavern Club on Matthew Street virtually every lunchtime. So on the 9th of November 1961, Brian and his assistant Alistair Taylor went round to the Cavern Club. When Brian walked in, he instantly fell in love with the 4 lads dressed in leather on stage. Straight after the gig, went up to the band and said, "I want to be a manager." John said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Epstein, but we've already got a manager, Alan Williams. But to be honest with you, he's not very good. We're thinking of getting rid of him." Brian said, "You get rid of him, I'll take over as manager." John said, "We'll think about it, we'll get back to you." That night, Brian Epstein went to see Alan Williams. Said to Alan, "What do you think of the Beatles?" Alan said, "They're nothing but trouble. Wouldn't touch them with a barge pole, they'd only let you down." Brian said, "Well, I'll manage them. Alan said, "You can have them." Alan unfortunately passed away just over 2 years ago. But he continued his career, travelled the world, doing TV programmes, films. He wrote 2 best-selling books on how stupid he was. Give the Beatles away. So Brian went back to the man and said, "Right, I'm your new manager." John said, "What do you want from us?" He said, 25% of everything. John said, "Hang on, Alan Williams only took 10%. He said, "Yeah." Now it's fair to say the Beatles would never have got as far as they did without the input of Brian Epstein. When people talk about the breakup of the Beatles, there's so many different stories about how it was Yoko's fault, it was Linda's fault. You can safely say it was 1967 when things started running wrong. When the lads were on a retreat in Bangor in North Wales, the Maurice Yogi. While they were there, they received a telephone call telling them that Brian had been found dead in his London apartment from a drink and drug overdose. The argument started straight away about who was going to take over as manager. The lads couldn't do it themselves. They'd always said they'd look after the music, he could look after the money. For a short time, they did manage themselves. They entered into a few dodgy deals, namely the Apple Boutique, which only lost them a lot of money and a lot of credibility. It also closed its doors after only 7 months of trading. It eventually came to 1970. Paul McCartney took to the High Court of London to sue the rest of the Beatles, so they could gain control of Apple, turn it into a profitable company, then give back the band what they were entitled to. So the High Court of London in 1970, the Beatles were broken up not as a band, but also as a business. The rest they say is history. That's how it really kicked off on the 9th of November 1961 when Brian popped round the cabin, found a little fuss was about after being asked for my Bonnie by all the kids coming into the shop. Now we just want to start turning right here. As we make our way to the top of the hill, coming up on the left hand side at the top of the hill is one of the most important places in the history of rock and roll music. You'll see St. Peter's Church. The church hall is actually on the opposite side of the road. It's a tall red brick building set back slightly with a red roof, points out as we got there. It was actually the back of the church on the 6th of July 1957 that the Quarrymen were playing at a garden party. In the crowd watching that day, a young lad called Ivan Vaughan. He brought his mate from Speak, a lad called Paul McCartney. When the band had finished an afternoon show, and we're setting up in the church hall, just back here on the right, for the evening performance, Ivan decided Paul to meet the band. The first thing Paul McCartney said to John Lennon was, "I noticed when you were playing the guitar, you don't use 4 strings. John said, "Yeah, it's because Mum's been teaching me on the banjo, and I know how to use 4 strings. Paul said, "Notice you also changed the words to some of the songs." John said, "Yeah, but don't know them, I make them up, it's more fun." Paul said, "I play the guitar as well." John said, "Go on then, show me." Been a bit cocky because Paul was younger. First thing Paul did was pick up John's guitar and tune it. That impressed John because John couldn't tune a guitar. He used to pay people to do it for him. Paul then turned the guitar upside down, played it left-handed, played 20 flight rock, note perfect, sang it word perfect, so again. On the way home that night, John was walking home with his best friend from the age of 4, a lad called Pete Shotton, who was also on the Quarrymen. John said to Pete, "What's the thing about McCartney fella? Pete, he knows all the chords, he knows all the words, and he can tune the guitar as well, so he'll save us some money, and he's learning the band." John said, "Alright, he'll be sure next time you see him, you ask him." 2 weeks later, Pete Shotton went to see Paul McCartney. He said, "Paul, do you want to be in the band?" Paul said, "Yeah, I'd love to, but I can't just yet. I'm offering a camping trip for the summer holidays with the Scouts." Very rock and roll. So it wasn't until October of 1957 that Paul made his debut with the band after meeting back in July. But St. Peter's Church is also home to one of the biggest coincidences in Beatles history. In the graveyard there's a gravestone with the name Eleanor Rigby, although to this day Paul McCartney still says got nothing to do with the name of the song. It was a long time after the song had been released that somebody first found the gravestone and pointed it out to them, and it is just a coincidence she's buried where they met for the first time. You can decide to believe him or not, he's never lied to me. Now jump off here, give me a chance to get your photographs right outside the gates of Strawberry Field. Formerly privately owned Victorian mansion dated back to 1870. 1934 it was sold to the Salvation Army and they opened a home for 40 girls. Over the years been a Salvation Army children's home, an orphanage, special needs school. He used to play in the grounds around Strawberry Field. The chap near me would always shout, "I've never been in there because it was private property." John's answer was always, "Sorry, can't hang me for it. Nothing to get hung about. Strawberry Field forever." In 1970s, a new building was built with a donation of £100,000 from John and Yoko. That building was demolished just over a year ago. What you've just seen there now is a brand new £8.5 million training centre for young adults with learning difficulties. For the first time ever, it's going to be open to the public. So Beatles fans are going to be able to go inside. Over around, there's going to be a gallery, coffee shop, exhibitions, all sorts going on. It opens to the public tomorrow. Honestly, have a look at the website. If you haven't got time to come back tomorrow when it's open, have a look at the website. It looks fantastic. The Steps to Work programme is great, but they've got a full-on exhibition, a visitor centre there. You can pay to go around now. It's got some stuff got delivered the other day from Graceland. Obviously, John's one of the biggest John's influences was Elvis, so Graceland have sent some stuff over to put on display in the visitor centre about John's life growing up and all that. So it looks wonderful. So have a little look at the website, strawberryfieldliverpool.com, and then next time you're in town, I'll take you inside. So the house that John lived in with his Aunt Mimi in 1945 to 1963, on the left hand side just here. So the reason this house has got a blue plaque on the wall and George's house hasn't is because the English heritage, you give them plaques out, will only give a plaque to somebody who's been dead for 20 years. The logic behind it is if you're still remembered after 20 years, you must have been famous. John's bedroom was the small one above the front door. Although when the band came round to rehearse, they weren't allowed in the house, the guitar was only allowed inside the porch. That's because Mimi always said to John, the guitar's all very well and good, John, but you'll never make a living out of it. In 1965, John came back to visit Mimi. After fighting his way through the crowd of people who gathered outside, he found Mimi sitting in the kitchen crying. When he asked her what the problem was, she said, I can't put up with these crowds anymore. I want me peace and tranquility back. John said, don't worry, I'll take you on holiday. He took her to a place called Poole in Dorset. As they got to the cottage where they were staying, John showed Mimi inside. So there to have a look around while he brought luggage in. As she walked in the house front, it was decorated beautifully. All the best furniture you get at the time. Above the fireplace, there was a plaque on the wall. The plaque said, the guitar's all very well and good, John, but you'll never make a living out of it. When she said, what's that all about? He should have bought you this house. She then shouted at him, what gives you the right to buy my house? Don't ask him. He said, look, you looked after me for 18 years, it's my turn to look after you. Only cost me £20,000, plenty more where that comes from. She accepted the house, lived there right up until 1991, until she died. Now we've got a couple of minutes drive, we're going to make our way round to number 20 Fulton Road, Paul McCartney's last home in Liverpool. And again, we'll jump off the bus, we'll take a little walk to his house, I'll talk about it when we get back on the bus. I'll also tell you what the tour you can do. If you're on the inside of John's house that we've just seen,